My name is Emma, and looking back, it feels strange how everything seemed so normal at first. College was supposed to be the time of my life. The friendships, the laughter, the small moments of joy. But none of us knew how much would change or how complicated life would become. It was the start of our second year at Oakwood College. The campus buzzed with life, students moving between classes, and the occasional bursts of laughter echoing through the corridors. The crisp morning air carried the faint scent of coffee from the nearby cafe, where groups of students often gathered to chat, study, or simply escape the monotony of lectures. I sat under our favorite tree with my two closest friends, Zara and Lily. It was a massive oak in the middle of the campus garden, its wide branches offering shade and a sense of calm amidst the chaos. Zara was sprawled on the grass, flipping through her notes, though I doubted she was actually studying. She had this way of always looking carefree, her laughter contagious. "So," she said, nudging me with her foot, "ready for another year of torturous lectures and boring professors?" I smiled. "You make it sound so exciting." Lily, who was sketching something in her notebook, looked up and gave a small laugh. "It's not that bad. At least we have each other." That was Lily. Always gentle, always kind. She had this way of seeing the best in everything, even when it wasn't obvious. As Zara launched into another one of her over-the-top complaints about the cafeteria food, my gaze drifted toward the cricket field. A group of boys was practicing, their shouts and laughter carrying across the garden. And then I saw him, Daniel. Daniel wasn't just any guy. There was something about him that made it impossible not to notice him. He was tall, with a confident stride and a smile that seemed to light up the space around him. He was the captain of the cricket team, and from what I'd heard, quite the charmer. "Emma," Zara teased, snapping her fingers in front of my face. "Caught you staring again." I felt my cheeks heat up. "I wasn't staring," I said quickly, looking away. "Right," Zara said with a smirk. "You're just observing." Lily chuckled softly, but she didn't say anything. I glanced at her, wondering if she had noticed anything unusual in my behavior. Classes that day passed in a blur of lectures and hurried note-taking. The classroom was the same as always. Wooden desks scratched with years of carvings, sunlight streaming through the large windows, and the faint hum of the ceiling fan. I sat near the back, trying to focus, but my mind kept wandering. The truth was, I had seen Daniel around before. He wasn't just popular for his looks or his skills on the field. There was something about him, something magnetic. After class, I headed to the library. It was my favorite place on campus, with its high shelves and quiet corners. As I walked through the aisles, running my fingers along the spines of books, I felt a sense of calm, but that calm didn't last long. "Looking for something?" a voice asked. I turned, startled, and found myself face to face with Daniel. He was holding a book in his hand, his expression easygoing. "Oh, no," I stammered. "Just browsing." He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made you forget what you were supposed to say. "Well, if you need any recommendations, I'm your guy." I managed a small laugh. "I'll keep that in mind." As he walked away, I felt a strange mix of excitement and nerves. It was just a simple conversation, but it left me feeling different. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a routine. Zara kept us entertained with her endless energy and dramatic stories, while Lily brought a sense of calm with her quiet, thoughtful nature. But then came the cultural festival, a week of performances, competitions, and late-night preparations. Lily and I had signed up for the decoration committee, which meant long hours of painting banners and setting up lights. Zara had joined the drama team, which suited her perfectly. The festival brought the entire college together, and for a while it felt like nothing could go wrong. One evening, as Lily and I were working on the decorations, Daniel walked in. He was part of the organizing committee, and seeing him there made my heart skip a beat. "Need any help?" he asked, his voice breaking the comfortable silence. Lily smiled. We could always use an extra pair of hands. Daniel picked up a brush and started painting alongside us. The three of us worked quietly for a while, the occasional laughter breaking the silence. But I couldn't help noticing the way he spoke to Lily. He was kind, attentive, and quite interested. It shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. The festival night was magical. The campus was transformed with fairy lights and colorful decorations. Music played in the background, and the air was filled with excitement. Zara's performance stole the show, of course. She had this ability to command attention, and the audience loved her. As the evening wound down, I found myself sitting alone under the oak tree, watching the crowd. "Hey," Daniel's voice broke through my thoughts. I looked up, surprised to see him there. "Why are you sitting here by yourself?" he asked, sitting down beside me. "I just needed some air," I said, trying to sound casual. He nodded, and for a moment we sat in silence, the noise of the festival fading into the background. "Tonight was fun," he said, "but I'm glad it's over. These things can be exhausting." I smiled. "You're telling me. I've been painting banners all week." He laughed softly. "You did a great job. The place looks amazing." As we talked, I felt a strange sense of ease. For the first time, it felt like he wasn't just the popular guy everyone admired. He was just Daniel. But things didn't stay simple for long. Over the next few weeks, I noticed a change in Lily. She was quieter than usual, her thoughts seemingly elsewhere. One afternoon, as we sat under the oak tree, Zara asked, "Lily, are you okay? You've been so quiet lately." Lily hesitated, her gaze fixed on the ground. "I'm fine," she said softly. But I knew her too well to believe that. Life at Oakwood College moved at its usual pace, classes, assignments, and the buzz of campus events. But for me, things didn't feel the same anymore. Something was changing, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Lily's quietness lingered, and I began to notice little things about her behavior. She'd arrive late for our meetups under the oak tree, her sketches less vibrant, and her smile no longer reached her eyes. One day I decided to ask her directly. Zara had already left for her theater practice, and it was just the two of us, sitting by the tree. "Lily," I said gently, "is something wrong? You've been distant lately." She hesitated, her fingers nervously tracing patterns on her notebook. Finally, she looked up, her eyes uncertain. Emma, it's nothing, really. I've just been distracted. By what? I pressed, my concern growing. Lily sighed. It's Daniel. We've been talking a lot, and I think I have feelings for him. Her words hit me like a wave. My stomach twisted, and I struggled to keep my expression neutral. Oh, I managed to say, forcing a smile. That's nice. Lily didn't seem to notice my discomfort. She smiled faintly. I know he's popular and probably doesn't see me that way, but he's been so kind. I feel like he understands me. I nodded, unsure of what to say. How could I tell her that I'd started to feel the same way about him? As the weeks passed, I found myself caught in a strange limbo. I didn't want to hurt Lily, but I couldn't ignore my growing feelings for Daniel. And then there was Zara, who remained blissfully unaware of the tension building beneath the surface. One afternoon, Zara dragged us to the cafe across from campus. It was a cozy place with warm lighting and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Zara was bubbling with excitement about an upcoming play, while Lily and I exchanged polite smiles, both of us lost in our thoughts. So, Zara said, stirring her iced coffee. What's new with you two? Any secrets you're hiding? Lily glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Nothing much, she said quietly. Zara raised an eyebrow. Really? Because I've heard rumors. My heart skipped a beat. Rumors about what? I asked, trying to sound casual. About Daniel, Zara said with a smirk. Apparently half the girls in this college are in love with him. Including you two? Lily's face turned red, and I avoided Zara's gaze. Zara laughed. Relax, I'm kidding. But seriously, what's so special about him? He's just a guy. I didn't answer, and neither did Lily. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Friday evening, and the campus was unusually quiet. Zara was rehearsing for her play, and Lily had mentioned staying late in the library. I decided to go for a walk, hoping to clear my head. As I passed by the cricket field, I saw Daniel sitting alone on the bleachers. He looked deep in thought, his usual confidence replaced by something more vulnerable. Hey, I called out, walking over. Everything okay? He looked up, surprised to see me. Oh, hey, Emma. Yeah, just thinking. I sat down beside him, the cool evening breeze brushing against us. Thinking about what? He hesitated, then smiled faintly. Life, I guess. The future. It's all happening so fast, you know? I nodded, understanding the feeling. It's scary sometimes, isn't it? Not knowing what's next. Yeah, he said softly. But it's also exciting. I mean, look at us. We're at this point in our lives where everything is possible. For a moment, we sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Emma, he said suddenly, turning to face me. I've been meaning to tell you something. My heart raced. What is it? I've noticed you, he said, his voice steady. You're different in a good way. I like that about you. I stared at him, unsure of how to respond. His words felt genuine, but I couldn't ignore the guilt gnawing at me. Lily's feelings for him were still fresh in my mind. "Daniel, don't say anything now," he interrupted. "I just wanted you to know." He smiled, and for the first time I saw a side of him that felt real. The following week was a whirlwind. I tried to focus on classes and assignments, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Daniel. Lily seemed happier, her quietness replaced by a lightness that hadn't been there before. But then, one afternoon, everything came crashing down. Lily and I were sitting in the library, working on an assignment. Zara had texted us earlier saying she'd join us later. "Emma," Lily said suddenly, her voice low. I looked up, startled by the seriousness in her tone. "What is it?" She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something. About Daniel." My stomach tightened. "What about him?" He asked me out," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "Oh," I said, forcing a smile. "That's great, Lily, really." Lily's face lit up, her eyes shining with happiness. "I wasn't sure at first, but he's so kind, Emma. I think this could really be something." I nodded. The smile plastered on my face even as my heart sank. That night I couldn't sleep. The image of Lily's joyful expression replayed in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, though I wasn't sure who had betrayed whom. As the days passed, I watched from the sidelines as Lily and Daniel grew closer. Zara teased them relentlessly, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. And then, one day, Daniel stopped talking to Lily. Lily was devastated. She wouldn't say much, but I could see the sadness in her eyes. "He just stopped," she told me one evening as we sat under the oak tree. "No explanation, nothing. I don't understand." I wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay, but deep down, I knew something had shifted. The weeks after Daniel distanced himself from Lily were quiet but heavy. Lily stopped talking about him entirely, and Zara, noticing the change in her usually bubbly friend, tried to fill the silence with jokes and stories. But even Zara's liveliness couldn't shake the cloud hanging over us. Lily's sadness was obvious, though she never said anything outright. I kept thinking about Daniel's words to me that evening on the bleachers, his confession, and the guilt twisted in my chest. I wanted to tell her, but every time I tried, the words stuck in my throat. One evening as I walked across campus, I saw Daniel again. He was leaning against the fence near the cricket field, his hands in his pockets, staring at the ground. He looked different, lost almost. I hesitated, then walked over. "Hey," I said softly. He looked up, startled, but his expression softened when he saw me. "Emma," for a moment neither of us spoke. The sounds of distant laughter and the rustling of leaves filled the silence. "What happened with Lily?" I finally asked. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated. Try me," I said, folding my arms. He hesitated, then spoke. "She's great. She really is. But I realized I wasn't being honest with her or myself. Honest about what? He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, about how I feel. My breath caught. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear what he was about to say, but at the same time, I couldn't stop myself from listening. "Emma," he said, his voice steady. "It's you. It's always been you." My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to be angry at him for what he did to Lily, for putting me in this position. But another part of me, the part that had been quietly hoping for this moment, couldn't ignore the truth in his words. "Daniel?" I started, but he interrupted me. "I know it's not fair. I know I messed up, but I can't pretend anymore." I didn't know what to say. I couldn't deny my feelings for him, but how could I move forward knowing what it would do to Lily? "I need time," I finally said. "This isn't something I can just decide right now." He nodded, understanding. By the end of the year, things had changed between all of us. Lily had started focusing on her art again, throwing herself into her sketches and staying late at the library. Zara remained her lively self, though even she seemed to sense the growing distance between us. And then graduation came. The ceremony was bittersweet. Smiles for the cameras, hugs that felt a little too tight, promises to stay in touch. But deep down, I knew things would never be the same. A few years later, I found myself walking down the aisle in a white dress. The hall was filled with laughter and applause, the air heavy with the scent of roses and the warmth of candlelight. Daniel stood at the end, waiting for me with that same smile that had once made me forget my words. As I walked toward him, I felt a mixture of happiness and apprehension. Our journey to this moment hadn't been easy, and part of me wondered if we could ever truly leave the past behind. Lily and Zara were there, sitting in the front row. Zara waved enthusiastically, while Lily offered a small, polite smile. I hadn't spoken to her much since graduation, and seeing her now brought back a flood of memories. After the ceremony, Lily approached me as I stood near the cake table. "Congratulations, Emma," she said, her voice soft. "Thank you," I replied, my heart heavy. "It means a lot that you're here." She smiled faintly, her gaze flickering to Daniel, who was talking to some of his friends. "I hope you'll be happy," she said. Her words were kind, but there was a weight to them, an unspoken sadness that I couldn't ignore. The first few years of marriage were good, simple even. Daniel and I moved to a small apartment, and we spent our days building a life together. But then, things began to change. It started with small arguments, forgotten anniversaries, late nights at work, misunderstandings that spiraled into silence. I told myself it was normal, that every marriage had its ups and downs. And then I started noticing other things. The way Daniel's phone would buzz late at night, the way he'd avoid my questions about where he'd been, the way his smile no longer felt the same. One evening, as I was putting our 2-year-old son Ryan to bed, I overheard Daniel talking on the phone in the living room. His voice was low, hurried, and when I walked in, he quickly ended the call. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Just work," he said, not meeting my eyes. but something in his voice made my stomach churn. It wasn't until I saw the messages on his phone that the pieces fell into place. Lily. The texts were brief but intimate. Meetings at odd hours, conversations that were too familiar, too personal. My hands shook as I scrolled through them, each word a dagger to my chest. Lily. The quiet, kind girl I had once called my best friend. The girl who had smiled at me on my wedding day. I confronted Daniel that night, my voice trembling with anger and betrayal. Is it true? I asked, holding up his phone. He froze, his face pale. Emma, don't lie to me, I shouted. How long has this been going on? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated. No, I said, my voice cold. It's simple. You betrayed me. The weeks that followed were a blur of anger, tears, and silence. I stopped answering Lily's calls, unable to face her. Daniel tried to explain, to justify his actions, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive him. And then, one night, it happened. Lily was found dead. The news of Lily's death hit me like a storm. It was late in the evening when I received the call. My phone buzzed incessantly on the coffee table as I sat on the couch, staring at nothing. I picked it up absent-mindedly, not knowing how those next few moments would shatter everything. Mrs. Emma Williams? The voice on the other end asked. Yes, I replied, my voice distant. This is Detective Harris from the local precinct. I'm sorry to inform you that Lily Carter has been found dead. We'd like to ask you a few questions. The phone slipped from my hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Emma? Daniel's voice broke through my haze as he entered the room. He looked at my face, then at the phone on the ground. What happened? I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight, and the room seemed to tilt. The next day, I sat in a sterile interrogation room, the air heavy with tension. Detective Harris was a tall man with sharp features and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. We're treating Lily's death as a homicide, he said, his voice steady but probing. Homicide. The word echoed in my mind, making my head spin. When was the last time you saw or spoke to Lily? Harris asked, his gaze fixed on me. I haven't seen her since my wedding, I stammered. We lost touch after that. He nodded, jotting something down in his notebook. And your husband? Did he keep in contact with her? My stomach churned. Why are you asking about Daniel? Harris leaned forward slightly. Mrs. Williams, there were messages on Lily's phone, recent ones, between her and your husband. We're trying to understand the nature of their relationship. I clenched my hands together, trying to steady myself. I don't know, I said quietly. Did you know they were having an affair? He asked bluntly. The words cut through me like a knife. I felt exposed, raw, as if the truth of my life had been laid bare for everyone to see. Back home, Daniel was waiting for me. His face was pale, his usually confident demeanor replaced with a nervous energy. What did they ask you? He said the moment I walked in. I dropped my bag on the table and faced him. They know about the texts, Daniel, about you and Lily. He swallowed hard. Emma, Don't, I interrupted, my voice sharp. Don't lie to me anymore. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. I didn't kill her. I swear to you, I had nothing to do with it. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe the man I had loved and married could never do something so monstrous. But the doubt was already there, creeping into every corner of my mind. Then who did? I whispered. The days that followed were a blur of questions and suspicion. Everyone was talking about Lily's death. The whispers at the grocery store, the sideways glances from neighbors. It was suffocating. I tried to avoid Daniel as much as possible. Every time I looked at him, I wondered, could he have done it? Could he have killed her to cover up the affair? But then there was Zara. She showed up unannounced one afternoon, her usual bubbly energy replaced by something quieter, darker. I just can't believe she's gone, Zara said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. I know, I said softly, my fingers tracing the rim of my coffee mug. Zara hesitated, then leaned forward. Emma, do you think Daniel had anything to do with it? Her question caught me off guard. Why would you ask that? She glanced around, as if afraid someone might overhear. There's something I haven't told you. Lily confided in me a few weeks ago. She said Daniel had been acting, strange. Possessive. My heart sank. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to make things worse, Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. But now, I don't know what to think. Later that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind raced with possibilities. Daniel had a motive, but so did Zara. She and Lily had always had a complicated friendship. And what about me? Hadn't I also harbored resentment toward Lily? The questions piled up, each one more suffocating than the last. A week later, I found myself standing in front of Lily's house. The police had finished their investigation and the place was eerily quiet. Something compelled me to go inside, to find answers for myself. The house smelled of dust and abandonment. I walked through the rooms, each one filled with memories of the Lily I had known, the quiet, kind girl who had once been my best friend. In her bedroom, I found her sketchbook lying open on the desk. Flipping through the pages, I saw drawings of familiar faces. Mine, Zara's, and Daniel's. But the last sketch stopped me cold. It was a dark, jagged drawing of a figure, standing in the shadows, its features obscured. Below it, in Lily's handwriting, were the words, "The truth always finds its way out." A chill ran down my spine. Back home, I confronted Daniel. "What did you do, Daniel?" I demanded, holding the sketchbook in my hands. He looked at me, his face pale. "Emma, I didn't kill her." "Then who did?" I shouted. "No," he yelled back, his voice cracking. "But it wasn't me. I loved her, yes, but I would never hurt her." Tears streamed down my face as I stared at him, the man I had once trusted with everything. In the end, Lily's murder remained unsolved. The police couldn't find enough evidence to charge anyone, and the case was quietly closed. But for me, the questions never stopped. Did Daniel kill Lily to hide their affair? Did Zara do it out of jealousy? Or was it someone else entirely? I don't know if I'll ever find the answers. All I know is that the shadows of that night will haunt me forever. If you liked my story, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next story.